So I was born in Chicago and then kind of moved all around, and I actually went to high school in France, and that was where I started to get into fashion. And I was living on the French Riviera in Nice, and just like all the colors, people there are pretty into dressing, and it's really nice light there, so there's a lot of painters and a lot of artists get inspired there. And I also met some textile artists around that time there and just saw a lot of art and got into it at that point. And then started making my own clothes. But I had been sewing as a child. My grandma's really into sewing, so I was kind of like sewing with her, but then kind of got more into the textile art in high school. And so then in college, I went in Hong Kong and I was studying textile technology, so I was really concentrated on textiles and fiber art and all that, and then started doing fashion along with it. So a lot of the clothes are really like fiber based, and they have like a lot of surface design on them, and like that's a fiber art piece. I also do a lot of fiber art just like for fun, just kind of like a hobby. Yeah, so it's kind of like feeding into the clothing, and so that's kind of how I got into it. A lot of like nature, just like natural organic shapes in nature, and then also like the textiles themselves, because a lot of the time I'll just experiment with the art pieces and then get inspiration just from like trying different things and different dyeing and all that. And then also I would say people, depending on, because I do a lot of custom work, so the people that I dress and just kind of like their spirit and their shape and all that. All natural, sustainable fibers, so that has a lot to do with it too, kind of like what you're able to do with those, because since they're not synthetic, they can take a lot of heat and you can dye them in all different ways, and just kind of playing with those, layering, dyeing, just kind of using it more sculpturally also. Well, to me, they're like my babies. I mean, they're just each having a life of their own, so I mean, I would say they mean a lot to me. And I would want it to affect the people that wear them in a way that they feel that it's really for them. Because a lot of the time it is actually made for them. So that I would want them to feel that it was kind of like melding with them and fitted in such a way that they felt really comfortable in it, and just something that really like expresses their individuality. Like something that they just feel really great in and confident. A lot of like Asian type shapes as far as like kimonos or cheongsams. So bringing that in that way, and also I think kind of a more Chinese aesthetic with the embroidery, because when I was in Hong Kong I was doing a lot of Chinese calligraphy and Chinese traditional ink wash painting, so we're bringing that in with the embroidery, just kind of like some of the same strokes and that general aesthetic. I guess it's just like usually with like a feeling that I want to create, and then, or maybe like a colorway that I'm thinking of, or it could be based off of something in nature that I saw or a photo. It could start in a lot of different ways, and then it's mostly experimentation after that. Sometimes I do sketching, but I'm not really like super big on sketching. That it's more so just doing for me, just because for me a lot of the fun of being a textile artist or fashion designer is like actually touching the textiles and seeing how they want to flow. So I do a lot of draping and that kind of thing, so it's more just fluid, organic type process. stay really individual, not following trends. I think being a Seattle designer, it's a blessing and a curse at the same time because there's really not a whole lot of established Seattle designers, not a lot of resources that you can draw on, local resources. That it's more like you're just kind of doing your own thing. Most, I think, Seattle designers are really independent about it, which I think can be a good thing or a bad thing. And I think there's not too many stores locally that just carry like independent local designers. So there's not really like a huge support for it. But I think if you have like the business sense to kind of just strike out on your own and like, you know, build it yourself, I think that it can totally work. It just takes a lot of, I think, determination to work. Generally people here are pretty into art and they're pretty into wanting non-traditional things. That I think it helps that it's more liberal and less conservative here. For sure, especially if you're doing a line that's more something different. So I think that helps. And I think there's also good programs for artists here in Seattle. Art Space is great, and I think, you know, just being part of the art walk in this building helps a lot. Just like the artist community is really good. I think for me, it's a little different than other fashion designers since I would say above all, I would think I'm an artist and the work is more approached that way. So I think the artist community here is pretty strong.